like the Calcaterra pick. Only thing I don't like about it, well, I mean, I like him at 6 because, I mean, let's face it. He retired because of concussions, and he's probably 1 or 2 concussions away from retiring again. You're kind of hoping that doesn't happen. But I watched him play when he was at Oklahoma because my wife's an Oklahoma grad, so I got a chance to watch a lot of Big 12 games. And he was special when he was a freshman and sophomore.
John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Mag Birds 365 guys. Etcher in the bud. He has been only covering Eagles for decades. He's still doing it these days from Philly Mag and writing for the 33rd Team.com. Well, Domowitch jumps aboard with us here on Birds 365. A lot easier covering the Eagles draft from your Barco lounger than it is having to go down to the NovaCare complex, isn't it, Domo?
Sure is. I didn't have to wait till 1 in the morning for Howie to surface that one day. And I like it a lot.
Yeah, those days are a chore, Domo. Oh, they're a chore. But hey, he could be working for a living. So we're lucky. We're all lucky.
Exactly.
So yeah, we'll start up. Let's get your thoughts. I mean, Howie makes 2 potentially franchise-altering moves in the first round, gives up a lot of draft capital to do it. But I thought it was the right thing to do. What was your take on trading up to get Jordan Davis and then trading for A.J. Brown?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Davis, I've said for weeks that if there was any way they could get him, they needed to. If he was within range like he was, go up and get him. I mean, he's a difference maker for that defensive line, both against the run and the pass. I mean, that was a terrific pickup. I mean, I think that's going to make a world of difference. And then they had to get A.J. Brown. I mean, they need a second receiver. It's not going to be Jalen Reagor. I think Brown
It is not.
No. So I think he's going to fit in nicely with Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. I think they've got let's put it this way. I don't think if everybody stays healthy, including their offensive line this year, Jalen Hurts has no excuses. So this year we'll find out once and for all whether he can be a franchise quarterback.
Now, real quick, Damo, obviously from a football perspective, A.J. Brown is a no-brainer for this particular team. And the fact that he's close to Jalen as well only helps even more. But were you surprised that all the Eagles were willing to go to that $25 million average annual value? I mean, the week prior, Howie had said, essentially, we want to zig. We don't want to be like everybody else. And then when he was talking about the exploding wide receiver market, and then he's just like everybody else, and he's handing out $25 million like he's Oprah taping a show. But A.J. Brown, I mean, he deserves it. He's in that category. But were you surprised that the Eagles went there at that particular position?
Yes and no. I mean, I think Howie understands that the cap is going to – I mean, the cap's probably, from everybody I've talked to, is going to go up $20 to $25 million each year for the next several years. So, I mean, cap management is a thing of the past. I mean, unless you're just really stupid and squander a lot of money, you can afford to pay pretty much anything to anybody. Why? Now I'm perplexed by why wide receivers are making this kind of money when you see 6 of them go in the first round over the weekend. I mean, it's not like quarterback where there's a scarcity of them, and you understand why the money. It's a quarterback-driven league, so you kind of understand why they're paying quarterbacks so much. Wide receivers, I'm a little bit surprised, but I think a part of it with Howie, he's been burned. He realizes, I think, he's not perfect in evaluating wide receivers. At least with A.J. Brown, you're getting a guy that's already proven he can play. So you're not projecting. This isn't going to be Jalen Reagor. This isn't going to be Arcega-Whiteside. You're getting a guy that has done it, and he can do it. So you're willing to pay the money.
Damo, I want to jump over to the other side of the ball because it sounds like we all agree the first 3 rounds of the draft, the Eagles just flat out killed it between A.J. Brown and Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean as a steal in the 3rd round. Even a Jurgens pick may need to have patience and just let him redshirt a year and sit on the bench. But when he gets a chance to play, you got a chance to go from a decade of Jason Kelsey to a decade of beef jerky. Then the last 2 rounds, I'm not exactly sure what the Eagles did there. Tight end, I don't get it. And another linebacker, I know he's a different type of linebacker than Nakobe Dean, but I know they're only late round picks, day 3 picks. But were you surprised at the individuals and the specific uses of the Eagles with their late picks in this draft? After having to give up as much draft capital to get the first 2 guys that they did.
Well, I think the first of those 2 late round picks, Johnson, I mean, he's going to end up being an edge rusher. Whether he's any good, we'll find out. But I mean, I think that's where his future is. I mean, they need all the edge rushing help they can get. If one of these kids turns out to be like a Teron, Jackson last year, if one of these guys turns out to be a keeper, over the long haul, they've helped themselves as far as their pass rush. I like the Calcaterra pick. Only thing I don't like about it, well, I mean, I like him at 6 because, I mean, let's face it, he retired because of concussions, and he's probably 1 or 2 concussions away from retiring again. You're kind of hoping that doesn't happen. But I watched him play when he was at Oklahoma because my wife's an Oklahoma grad, so I got a chance to watch a lot of Big 12 games. And he was special when he was a freshman and sophomore. You heard Nick talk, and I love it when Nick talks 12 personnel. He's talking about how this kid could fit in 12 personnel. He's not much of a blocker, but if he can catch the ball. He can, he's a good route runner. He's got decent speed. So, I mean, I think he was worth taking and it's not even taking a chance on him in the 6th round. I mean, he deserved to go about there. And I think he could be a player if he can stay healthy. That's a big if because, you're talking about concussions. And once you've had a string of them, it gets easier to get them and they get more serious. So, I don't hold out hope that he's going to be around a long time. But he's, talent-wise, he was worth the pick.
Are you surprised you mentioned the concussion issue and Grant did retire for a year and tried firefighting? So there were all the Danny Watkins jokes, as you can imagine, Damo. But and then came back and actually was going to go to Auburn and then ended up at SMU. So really talented kid. Obviously, when you get recruited by Oklahoma and then Auburn's looking for you. But they also did it with Nakobe Dean in that there's, it's pretty much, there's a lot of teams. It's not the pec from what I hear. It's the shoulder and the knee. And some people might think it's a chronic issue. And the Eagles kind of went out on a limb twice on the injury front. And that's bit them before with Sidney Jones, but it worked last year, at least in the short term with Landon Dickerson. You're surprised the Eagles didn't shy away from those potential issues with medical red flags.
No, and I also think that one that, in addition to the health, I mean, I've been told that a lot of people did have some problems with his size, which is kind of stupid. Because I mean, if you haven't learned by now that shorter linebackers can play, then you don't.
Sam Mills, baby.
Exactly. I go back to Jeremiah Trotter, John. Same kind of thing.
He had some
chronic knee. What they said when he was coming out was, it's fine now, but he's probably going to have a short career. He's not going to be around 12, 13, 14 years. And that's probably the same situation with this guy. But, 3rd round, a guy with this talent, a guy that can help you in so many ways, including as a blitzer. I didn't think it was that big of a gamble. And there was, you look at what was available at other positions right there. And, if there was a corner there was a corner run right before they picked earlier in the round. So there was nobody really at that position, which is a position in need. where you said, why didn't they take this guy? There really was nobody that belonged in that spot at corner or safety for that matter. So, I like that pick. Obviously, a lot of people like that pick. I don't, even if the pec is a serious problem this year and you redshirted him, I'm still okay with it.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said the pec doesn't concern me at all. I'm like, so what? I got a redshirt him. I got Kaiser White. I got TJ for a year, and
Exactly.
I'm fine with redshirting him for 1 year. So it didn't make much sense to me. But then I started hearing the knee stuff and the shoulder stuff, and it made a little bit more sense. But I think it's tremendous value either way for the Eagles.
And I dismissed the knee stuff and the shoulder stuff because he had it this year. Oh, and he was the most productive linebacker in college football. Give me that guy with those knee problems and shoulder problems if he can put up those kind of numbers. All right, I'm going to give you an either or, Damo. Starting across from Anthony Harris at safety for the Eagles this year, getting the majority of the snaps will be Reed Blankenship, Marcus Epps, Kayvon Wallace, or other. Which are you going with? You can get all three of the guys who are already under contract for the Eagles, or you can go in another direction with other. Who's going to get most of the snaps across from Harris?
I mean, other's always a possibility because you never know when late in camp, somebody that you just absolutely never expected to see get cut gets cut, and you're willing to give him a shot. But right now, I'd go with Marcus Epps. He's shown improvement. I don't know what, when Kayvon Wallace was drafted, I thought this kid was going to be a real player. I mean, I watched him play at Clemson, so much experience. And, unless he's makes a big improvement this offseason, he just is what he is, which is a backup. So I would say right now, Marcus Epps, and I'm not saying it with enthusiasm. Maybe I think they've decided, we've really beefed up our linebacking core, so we don't have to. It's like a new thing, maybe they won't get to the back end.
Yeah, I'm not so sure, but they do seem to like Marcus a little bit more than most. I think that's legitimate. But I do think they still need help at cornerback and safety. Now they spent a lot of money on undrafted free agency, so they knew they had this budget, and they signed 3 corners and a safety. Now, undrafted free agents are what they are, but as far as the corner position, Steve Nelson's now in Houston. We know in the past, you go back to the Super Bowl season, they traded Ronald Darby in August. Last year, they brought Nelson in, I think, 2 days before camp. Is it going to be the same thing this year? We're talking about corner and safety in August and how he's going to bring somebody in.
I think so. I mean, the corner situation, guys, really concerns me right now. When you got Howie standing up there the other night, playing, talking about Mac McCain and Tay Gowan and Josiah Scott, these guys.
Carrie Benson Jr. Don't forget Carrie. Yeah, there's so many of them.
Kmart. I mean, come on. I think it's. I think their starting corner is going to end up being somebody that's not on the roster right now that gets, they pick up in training camp or make a trade for in training camp, something like that.
Honey Badger likely gone. Ian Rappaport reported it a few minutes ago. Deal set to be finalized in the coming days. So that was a player. I think he Zoomed with the Eagles. He actually didn't come in, but seemed like a player they had interest in, but only if the price was going to be, Kmart, as you would say. They were shopping at the clearance aisle. And, it's interesting. They went all in with A.J. Brown. Honey Badger has played a lot of football, but he's not even 30 yet, Damo, which is, because he came in so early. Seems to have lost a step. Do you see valuation positions changing at all for the Eagles a little bit with Jonathan Gannon, maybe on the defense versus, say, Jim Schwartz?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see it with the linebacker position. You see it with the interior line. But definitely, I mean, it switched a little bit. I mean, they hit, what positions are important to to Jonathan, were not as important with Schwartz, even though Schwartz was a big linebacker guy early in his career. I mean, he had some pretty good interior guys, but I mean, he with the Eagles, he felt he could get by with, or at least had to get by with whoever, what was out
Well,
there.
the problem was he brought in some of those good interior guys. Stephen Tulloch at the very end. Hey, Stephen was a hell of a player, but not here.
Coaches, they think guys are, they remember them from 10 years ago, and they get pick them up again, and they can't even they can't run from here to there. So, yeah, no, you're right. The valuation has changed on a lot of positions. Wide receiver, though, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's become that's a desperation situation, especially if you're trying to judge Jalen Hurts here. You want to give him all the weapons he can get.
All right, I'm going to get real creative and play Howie Roseman here, and you tell me if this has got any possibility to happen. The Philadelphia Eagles trade Gardner Minshew to the Seattle Seahawks for a 6th-round pick, which can go to a 5th-round pick, depending on how much he plays, which could go to a 4th-round pick, depending on how far he gets him into the playoffs. And then the Eagles signed Nick Foles as their backup quarterback to be here behind Jalen Hurts.
Oh, no, Jody.
Come on. We wait an hour and 39 minutes before I mentioned Nick Foles. Come on. I showed a lot of patience before I went there. Any chance, Tomo? Is it more than 0% that they trade Gardner Minshew to open up the backup quarterback spot for Nicky Six?
The Minshew trade, I think, is definitely a possibility. Nick Foles being that they bring in to replace him, I don't see that happening.
Oh.
But I mean, Seattle.
It'll give us stuff to talk about here. Who cares if he actually can still play or not? He's Nick Foles coming back to Philly again.
Free beers all around, right?
I'll buy him one. That'll be worth the price for me. Whatever Nick drinks.
Last time, even Nick didn't want to come back. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to hear about it anymore. We got to stop talking about Nick Foles. But
never.
You brought up, some of the excuses are gone with Jalen Hurts now. Not excuses, but you could explain away some difficulties by saying he doesn't have any weapons. And now you look up, you wake up, and you go, well, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, you're not going to get much better than that as your top 3 options. Miles Sanders entering a contract year certainly has a lot to play for. You have arguably the best offensive line, certainly a top 5 offensive line. There's no more explanations for lackluster play. And it's pretty evident that Nick Sirianni isn't going to show up week 1 and saying, we're going to run the football. They're not paying A.J. Brown $25 million to not catch the football. They're going to start throwing it. And there's going to be more 11. Thomas going to get his 12. Maybe Grant Calcaterra steps in. But 6 weeks. I'm going to give you week 6, Damo. That's the cutoff. You think we're going to know about Jalen Hurts by week 6?
I think we're going to have a pretty good idea by then. I mean, granted, we don't know the schedule yet, so we don't know who those first 5 opponents are going to be. Like if it were last year and you looked at that, that murderer's row that they started with, you'd probably say he's going to need a little time before we make a decision here. So I mid-season, though, I think we'll have a pretty good idea. I think they're going to run more than we think. They're not going to be like last year where they were the only team in the playoffs that ran the ball more than they threw it. But I think they're going to try to strike some balance because this line is just so good. You want to take advantage of that. I also think one thing that they didn't do enough of last year and they need to do more of this year is use those 2 running backs as receivers. I mean, Kenny Gainwell was one of the best pass catching running backs in the draft last year. And I mean, they need to start using him more in that vein, and it'll just opens up everything even more for the rest of those guys, both your wide receivers, your tight end, and also the running game. So, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think by midseason, John, we'll have a pretty good idea of whether one of those 2 picks in next year's draft is going to be for a quarterback.
All right, you threw out a name there. I want to get you to get on the record. And I know health has a lot to do with it, but he stayed healthy for the most part last year, played in 16 out of 17 games. Gainwell had 101 touches in 17 games last year between carries and reception, 67, 68 catches, 33 receptions, 101 touches. What does that number go for him this year? We all believe it's going up. How far up?
If he stays healthy, I think it goes up to 200.
Wow.
Both running and passing combined. I mean, see, well, I'll tell you, I know I'm in the minority of this. I know Eagles fans just love the hell out of Miles Sanders. I think Kenny Gainwell's a better back. I mean, we're what, 3 years into Miles Sanders, and he still wants to take everything outside. He's not a very smart running back from that standpoint.
That's true.
He's been inconsistent as a receiver. He had that one year where he couldn't catch. I mean, they were throwing. He's out there in the flat, and they're throwing it to him wide open and from Wentz, and he's dropping those. I mean, I don't think he's going to see a second contract here. I think they need to pick up a power back for short yardage here at some point. Don't have one on their roster right now, do they? Other than
no, they didn't. They signed Kennedy Brooks, an Oklahoma guy, so your wife might be able to get. But he's not. He's about 210, so he's not short now.
Brooks is. I watched him, and I would always tell my wife, just too slow. Too slow getting to holes, too slow running away from people. But he's a strong, straight ahead runner, so maybe he helps them. But I mean, I love Gainwell. I mean, I loved him when they drafted him. I thought he was a steal in the 5th round, and I think he's if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a productive player this year for them.
Yeah, especially as a receiver. He's just a natural receiver where Miles has talent, but I don't think he's a natural tracker of the football. So I think he struggles a bit from that perspective. So Jody was talking about refurbished models, but the quarterback factory's open, Damo. It is open, and they got some brand new stuff coming out. Carson Strong. We got a Carson back. Forget a Nick. We got a Carson back. And E.J. Perry, they're signing the kid from Brown as well. Oh. So they got an Ivy Leaguer. They got a smart guy coming in. Any possibility? I mean, Reed Sinnett is the developmental quarterback right now. So I think Carson Strong, if he's healthy, has a legit shot at being that number 3 guy. But, a lot of people thought he was draftable. What'd you think of Carson Strong?
Yeah, I liked him a lot. I mean, I didn't see a lot of tape, but I looked at his numbers. His
numbers were great.
He had like 60-some touchdown passes.
Yeah, I think it was over 40 last year.
Yeah, I was surprised that he fell, and didn't get drafted.
Another medical guy. He's got a bad knee.
So a quarterback, you don't worry about that as much, though.
It is interesting, though, because he's the traditional stand-up pocket passer who doesn't move very well. And EJ's sort of the new age movement-based quarterback who maybe can't throw it from the pocket. So it's interesting the Eagles are trying both versions. So and that kind of defines them with Jalen Hurts as well. Do you take anything out of the Eagles bringing in 2 undrafted quarterbacks, or it's just like they like quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, they've got to cover their bases right now. I mean, because if he gets hurt, you got to have you always have to have reinforcements. B, you're thinking long term right now. What if he's not the guy? I mean, they've got the 2 picks next year, but so do I believe right now. There's already 5 teams next year with multiple picks in the first round. It's going to be a very good quarterback class, but there's going to be a lot of competition for those top guys. So, I mean, their best case scenario is that this kid proves he can play this year. But I think, Howie wants to make sure he's got backups that they can develop or that have some promise.
On the quarterback front, we're going to have our buddy Rick Saratella from NFL Draft Bible tomorrow. He stuck strong with Carson Strong.
Yeah,
as
poor
his-
Rick. You're not going to let Rick buy that, are you, Jody? Poor Rick.
What's that?
Malik Willis. He had Malik Willis going 18 to the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. I'll give him a hard time on that. But I'm just talking about the guys that the Eagles did bring in. He had Carson Strong as his number 5 quarterback, and he had the kid from Brown as his 6th quarterback. So they got both of those guys via undrafted free agency. Those are pretty good darts to be throwing at the board. But I want to throw a dart here. Hold on. Let me double check this. Eagles draft, no defensive ends. Eagles free agent after the draft signing, no defensive ends. Are we ready for another year of Derek Barnett? Come on, you got to get excited with me here, Damo.
Well, I mean, he's in a 4-man rotation. I mean, my feeling is that they're going to move people around a lot more this year. I think we're going to see Fletcher Cox outside more, Milton Williams. I mean, this is what's happening in the league right now. You want guys that you can pretty much put anywhere up and down that line. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Davis is athletic enough to put anywhere. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Jonathan Gannon uses all of these guys, where he lines them up, where they're most effective. But I mean, I think that's why they're not too concerned about the fact that right now somebody like Derek Barnett is, and Derek's had his moments. I'm not going to trash him. He just wasn't a first round. He was, it's like Mike Mamula. If Mike Mamula wasn't a first round pick,
it's all about the label. If he were a third round pick, you'd say, oh, that's a pretty good rotational player.
All right, we'll forget where he was drafted. $4 million free agent signing this year, Derek Barnett. Is he going to be worth it?
That's chump change right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with Damo. I think he's a good rotation. Now, if he plays 70% of the snaps, then I have a problem. But I do think Damo's right. People get too hung up on 4-3 versus 3-4 now. You're going to see multiple fronts. You're going to see 5-man fronts, 3-man fronts, conventional 4. You're going to have Hassan Reddick playing 2 different positions. We're gonna know after this season if we're renting Jonathan Gannon, as the Eagles say, or if the hype is much ado about nothing, because they've given him a lot of pieces in the front 7. Now there's still a lot of excuses in the secondary, though, so I guess we can go there. But that front 7, this is as deep as it's been here, Damo, in quite a while. When you talk about now, you have Nakobe Dean to TJ Edwards played well last year, and they signed Kaiser White. This is the best linebacker group they've had.
And don't forget Davion Taylor. I mean, if he can stay healthy, he started to show something middle of the year before he got hurt. So, I mean, granted, he still doesn't have much of a clue instinctively, but yeah, I mean that front set. I mean, they still got they were the worst. They had the worst opponent completion percentage in the league last year. I'll remember what good quarterbacks did to them. So I mean, they have to improve at cornerback, and right now that there's a big void at that other corner. So we'll see.
And J Mac, what's your favorite Coach Schwartz phrase about putting youngsters out there?
Startup cost. Love it.
Startup cost.
Love
the
it.
Startup cost for the Eagles at cornerback this year could be significant.
Yeah. Jim did not like playing young players. Yeah. There's a lot of startup costs there. But we'll end it here. P. Damo, follow him on Twitter. You can read him at the 33rd team. Damo. Last one, I guess you mentioned a little bit about Miles Sanders in his contract year. Do you see any path to him getting that second contract? I know you don't think he's going to get it. I don't think he's going to get it here. Obviously, he's going to get it somewhere else. But I'm talking about in Philadelphia. From this perspective, though, if he finally turns into the player Eagles fans thought he was going to be, and he has that 1,300-yard season, and he looks like that explosive back, then he's going to cost too much money. Yeah. And if he has a bad season, they're going to say, all right, we're just going to run this over. Is there any way Miles Sanders can get a second contract with the Eagles.
You know, he goes out there and has maybe 570-yard runs in the first 5-6 games. I mean, I think they're looking at it like, okay, we're probably not re-signing him, and he's going to have to pretty much knock our socks off here, and he's not going to really have enough opportunities to do that because I think they're going to mix Gainwell in even more, like I said earlier. So, yeah, I just don't see any way he gets a second contract here.
Domo, great stuff. As always, buddy, we'll reach back in a couple of weeks. We get a little closer to camp, see if the Eagles do anything else via free agency. Know that most of the best players have been picked up, but a little bit of movement today after whatever 4 o'clock doesn't count against the compensation signings. We'll see if the Eagles have a couple more tricks up their sleeve, those Howie Roseman. Appreciate you coming on board with us today. Glad you enjoyed your draft weekend at home. Thanks for hopping on with us, bud.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Paul Domowitch from Philly Mag and also the 33rdteam.com. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac coming back. What are we going to do? Oh, we'll put a bow in the show next.